Hello and welcome to the FARcast here at Chadron State College. I'm Daniel Binkard, joined by my co-host Alex Helmbrecht, and we're here today with Dawn Brammer. Dawn is an associate professor in our Health, Physical Education, and Recreation program. Dawn, great to have you here today. To start off with, tell us a little bit about where you came from, where you grew up, and how'd you end up here at Chadron?
You bet. I'm from Alliance, Nebraska originally, and I'm a first-generation student, and was recruited out of high school to come here for track and field. So that was kind of my introduction to Chadron State College, and then took a year off after I was here, went to Black Hill State, and assistant volleyball and assistant track coach there. And I had a little stint in the public schools as well. So, and then came calling back to Chadron State thanks to Dr. Colgate, and I've been here ever since. So didn't travel far from my hometown, but I feel that Chadron's kind of my home now. So
Yeah, that's good.
yeah.
Who was the coach who recruited you? Was it the volleyball coach or the track coach?
It was the track coach, and as soon as he recruited me, he left. And so we had to fill in. We had actually Scott Noble, that was the assistant football coach and head track coach. He was the track coach through my junior year, and then Ken Woodard was my senior coach. So, I went through a couple coaches there as well. So,
not any of your doing.
No, not any of my doing by any means, no.
Dawn, you have a few degrees from CSC.
I do.
Including, obviously, a bachelor's degree and then 2 master's degrees.
Right.
You kind of mentioned Chadron as you consider it your hometown now. Apologies to all the Alliance people who still claim you, but talk a little bit about how long CSC has been a part of your life.
You know, when you kind of alerted me of this question, I started taking a look at that. And if my memory serves me well, which sometimes that doesn't happen, but I think Chadron State's been a part of my life for about 27 years, including my undergrad, as well as my master's classes and degrees there. But 27 years. I think I've lived here longer than I have been a part of an Alliance, even though I'll still call Alliance home when I call back to mom and dad's. But Chadron State's been a big part of my life here.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, Dawn, you were an excellent thrower for the track team back in the day, early 1990s, and you're a member of the college's Athletic Hall of Fame, which is pretty cool. Can you tell us a little bit about your track and field career?
Sure. When I was in high school, I was a thrower, and just not to date myself, but to date myself a little bit. Back then, and still in the state of Nebraska, they only throw shot put and discus. And at the collegiate level, now they throw the indoor weight. Outdoor, they have hammer, and they've added that. So I was recruited more for shot put and discus. And the indoor experience was very new to me as an athlete. And it took a little while to get used to, just because the implements felt different in your hand, and everything else was the same. But then moving to outdoor, I was able to do what I felt like I was more recruited for, was for the discus. And but as we look back at my accomplishments, shot put was actually my best event. But on record, it probably would have been discus if we were to measure warm-ups and stuff, which we can't. But that's what. And I threw the javelin a little bit while I was here, just to get a few points for conference meets and things. So
I can remember it was a track meet you and I actually covered together as a conference meet in like 2010, I think, in Golden. And the former track coach then was Ryan Bailey, and had a pretty good men's team and wanted to get as many points as possible. And there were like 8 CSC entries in the javelin throw. And I felt so bad for some of those guys out there. I mean, they were trained to do it, but they were just flinging their bodies. That's a tough event.
It is. And I actually ended up giving it up because my elbow started hurting, and I didn't want it to affect my other throws or volleyball at the time too. So
now, is it true that the discus, the weight of the discus and the shot put is the same in high school as it is in college?
It is, yeah. In women's sports, it doesn't change. Where the men's and boys, you have the junior high weight, then you go to the high school, and then to the collegiate is heavier.
Yeah.
And I wish that maybe the women's would move up to the high school boys weight, at least to progress and see how you change and get stronger and faster and better.
What are the various weight scales? Do you know offhand?
In which...
Oh, for any, let's say, what is women's then?
4 kilo for the shot put, which is 8.8 pounds. Right. Men's is 12 pound, and then 16 at the collegiate level. It's 12 pound in high school. And for the discus, now you're racking my brain. I can't remember. You didn't give me that question, so I didn't.
I can remember the weights. They put the name of the pound or the poundage in the weights. So like the 20-pound weight throw and stuff like that.
Yeah, and for the weight, it does. It changes. The women is 20 and the men is 35 pound.
Which is a terrifying event to photograph and to probably judge.
It is very
to measure.
Yeah.
And
you kind of want to know, have some idea of the releases, if they're right-handed or left-handed throwers, and that release point, and because accidents happen all the time. So even with the cages that we have.
Sure. So we talked about track and field, but you also played volleyball and coached volleyball at Chadron State for 8 years. Talk about that experience, both as a player and as a coach.
Sure. Volleyball is probably almost as equal passion as track and field is for me. And it's for completely different reasons. I was fortunate enough to have an outstanding high school volleyball coach, Coach Sandra Pilfold out of Alliance. And she kind of sparked my passion for not only playing the game, but for understanding the strategies and coaching the techniques and stuff. She was such a technician that I just kind of fell in love with that part of it. Coming into Chadron State, I didn't play my first 2 years. I played intramurals and things like that. And when Dr. Hilda Fronsky was the volleyball coach here, she happened to be walking through the gym one day when we were out playing. And she came up to me. She knew me from track. It's like, hey, I need you to try out for the volleyball team. And okay, I'll try out, and lo and behold, she offered me a small scholarship, and I played for 2 years. I opted not to play my last season that I had eligibility, but I was student assistant during that time. I just opted to focus on studies and go out and student teach, because at that time we student taught the same semester we took block. So it was a short time. So,
well, you would have been busy with track. I mean, track begins in the fall pretty much and goes through the spring. So,
right. Yeah. And as I look back out on athletics and what it played a part in my life, I think I'm not different than anybody else. I think it kept me perhaps out of trouble. It kept me in line academically. But furthermore, I would just say the relationships that I made with my teammates, my coaches even. I still talk to my coaches, and I'm best friends with one of my volleyball coaches I had. And just those relationships kind of added that intimacy that sometimes you miss out on. I think maybe I would have went to a larger school for track and field, and I might not have had the volleyball experience too. But volleyball definitely was different. It was more that team sport compared to the individual sport for track, and travel was different compared to where we went for track meets and stuff. So as a student athlete, I got to see a great portion of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, South Dakota. And then when we went to nationals, back then we didn't have the budget to fly, so we drove. And those experiences, you can't take those back. And the memories we made along the way were just phenomenal. So.
Well, and then you probably got to experience that in a little bit of a different type of situation when you were the head coach yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I know, just from knowing you for as long as I've been here, built some really lasting relationships with some of your players, too.
Absolutely. A lot of the players that I still communicate with, are sharing their family triumphs and celebrations with me. It's just it's a unique opportunity that I feel very blessed to have been a part of, because I know not everybody gets that opportunity. And for me to come back to Chadron State to coach at my alma mater was something pretty special too. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Dawn, where does your passion for athletics come from?
Oh, boy. I don't know. I think, as a young child, I was pretty competitive in a lot of things, whether it was with my sister or my dad. I grew up fishing and camping, and, we competed all the time. Who was going to catch the most fish, the biggest fish, it was always. And then because we were always at the lakes and things, I didn't get the opportunity to participate in a lot of camps and things that are going on, with youth today. And I think that's okay. I think I made good progression, and I was successful without doing that. And I still had that opportunity to be part of my family during those times. But I don't know where that competition and my love for athletics. My middle school coaches played a big part of that. Lanny Shelmadine, Shirley Schlenker, some of those individuals from Alliance that, they make an impact on you, and you just want to keep driving to not only succeed, but please those individuals that I think are kind of some heroes in your lives and stuff. So, and then again, at the high school level, I was blessed to have great coaches. So, and Coach Nelly from Alliance in track and field, I could call him when I was here competing and say, I just don't know what I was doing wrong here. And he says, well, first of all, you need to take a break and take a breath, and you're fine, and he just knew me because he took that opportunity to take time to get to know his athletes. So I think that passion is something that I wanted to try to portray as a coach and now as a teacher too. So.
Yeah, well, certainly something that can assist you in your current profession as a teacher. You're kind of, you've had one of those unique experiences at CSC, both as a staff member and now as a member of the faculty. What are some of the biggest differences that you've encountered?
Oh, great question. I think kind of...
Other than having summers off.
Right, yeah.
I had to throw that one in.
We don't have summers off.
I know you don't.
At least I don't. I teach most all summer, so nice one though, Alex. I think the biggest difference is just kind of the procedures and how you may have to talk to or talk to your bosses, perhaps. You'd go different routes to get things done. I don't know if there's a lot of differences. In that, I would say a lot of similarities. I think we're all here for the students. I truly believe that here at Chadron. That's one of the reasons I'm still a part of this community. But I'm not sure about differences there.
Yeah, and I think that the thing, at least I've noticed, because I've sat on a few committees with you, it's developed a broader base of understanding for you. Like, you bring things that... and you make points that just others don't bring up because they haven't been in that world.
Right.
And so I think you're being a little bit humble and that you do bring a lot, and that it's certainly an opinion that is one worth hearing.
Well,
so,
I appreciate that. Yeah. And like I said, I've just been blessed to have those opportunities to be in different positions and having an understanding completely of what is our mission, what is our goal, why are we all here type thing. And now that we're moving forward, with the SEMP and things like that, I think we've moved and made a lot of progress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good things to keep in mind. I mean, if you took the time you've been here as a student, as an employee, and the time Daniel and I have been here as students and employees, we'd probably be close to the retirement age.
Right, absolutely.
and we're here for the same things. Like you mentioned, we're here for the students and kind of being those impactful figures in young people's lives.
Right. And going back to that, how you treat people on the campus, I think, has a big impact. One of my best friends told me, take care of those who take care of you. And in the coaching world, you know, you're working with so many different entities, SID's office, the custodial, the conferencing, every maintenance if you have to move bleachers, everything and anything. So that I think one of the things that I noticed even as a faculty member is we need to keep those relationships going. We just can't expect these things to be done. You know, we're all in it for the same reason. So that's
yeah, well said.
Kind of the philosophy I live by, and I hope that everybody thinks that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What courses do you focus on teaching at this point?
Currently, most of the classes I teach are teacher ed classes. I teach one health and wellness class, which is for essential studies. So almost all of the classes I teach are focused on some component of teaching,
Right.
whether it's how to break down a skill or how to set up a classroom, how to assess, how to plan. So almost every class I teach is focused on that teaching aspect.
You were telling us before we started recording that there's a lot of travel right now as you're observing the student teachers. I got to wondering just what's been a really satisfying aspect of teaching for you?
I think the relationships with the students that are involved in our classes. Also the ability with my supervision getting back out into the schools because I was part of the K-12 system and seeing our students out there making a difference is impactful. But just me being able to have those connections still, not just on a phone or in an email to a teacher out there in the surrounding community. So making sure that, you know, what we're doing is still kosher to what's going on out in the schools.
Do you see a lot of familiar faces as you come back to these schools year after year?
I do.
Is there a good continuity out here in western Nebraska?
There is, and you know, just recently in the two schools that I was at, I've seen some of the students that were either elementary teachers that have one class with me, and they're bringing their classes in there, and they give me a hug, and that's just very rewarding. And
Great.
They're not trying to avoid me in the classrooms or anything like that. So.
That's a good way you can gauge it.
Absolutely.
They avoid you if they're giving you hugs.
Yeah. You know, and the other thing that I just absolutely love is, you know, anybody who's dealt with a kindergarten class, I'll go observe a kindergarten class sometimes just on purpose.
Yeah.
And they'll just come up to me and give me a hug. And then they'll say, well, who are you? After they've given you the hug. And, you know, that just makes your heart smile. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Good deal.
Dawn, you're also involved with Shape Nebraska. Can you tell us a little bit of what is Shape Nebraska?
All right. SHAPE is what used to be AFERD, which was the American Alliance for Health and Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. It's converted more into, the acronym stands for the Society of Health and Physical Educators. And SHAPE Nebraska is part of SHAPE America, and it's just a place or a membership that we can go to that helps support professional development in our areas. And through SHAPE Nebraska, it's just kind of, when I went to school, just to kind of rewind a little bit, Ann Smith was our health and physical education teacher, and she really pushed us to be a part of professional organizations. So I got involved with it clear back then. Then when I moved back to Chadron State in '97, I was the intramural director, and I ran the Nelson Physical Activity Center for a year, and I got back into SHAPE Nebraska from the professional side of it, and I got to meet some really good people that were advocates for the profession, and that really grabbed me. And so I've been involved with it pretty much ever since. And as I've served as past president. Right now I serve as parliamentarian, so I don't have an official role, but we help make decisions about the conference and who can we bring in for keynote speakers, who can we get to present at the conferences, and we try to approach it to what are the needs of the schools across the state of Nebraska. And so we can do everything from assessment to different activities to do for physical education. Right now, a big thing for Nebraska is writing of the health standards for K through 12 programs. And we've not had written health standards before. So this is part of a process that SHAPE is going to hopefully take on a little bit to provide some professional development for the new standards for the teachers. So,
well, it certainly sounds like a worthy cause to be involved with.
It is. I think we've made some differences and helped some teachers along the way. You know, we work with the ESU units across the state and help get professional development to our content area, because sometimes it is hard to find individuals that'll come in and present just for health or just for physical education. So that's kind of how we've gotten some things brought forth to the state to get us new physical education standards for K through 12 also.
Great.
So
you mentioned, I think Ann Smith it was, that recommended get involved.
Yeah.
How rewarding has it been for you to be involved, and is it something you recommend to your own students?
Oh, absolutely. Just because of the relationships, you get down oftentimes in schools as a specials area, you kind of sometimes get put to the side because some of those core areas are focused on more so. And when we get to like Shape Nebraska or Shape America to the conferences, it's kind of a breath of fresh air because you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to fight for a position. Right. It's already there. Everybody's there for the right reason. And the relationships that I've made have been huge. We've taken several students to Shape Nebraska to nationals as well. And currently, Miranda Oberschulte is serving as Shape Nebraska treasurer, and she's one of our Chadron State students. So, and she just said that you kept pressing us and to do that, and Ann's voice was right here in the back of my mind saying some things, you know, and so that's I'm glad to see that, and because we have to be an advocate for what we do.
Sure.
So.
You know, you mentioned Ann Smith, and her name comes up quite a bit when you talk about folks who teach in the hyper department or who had some type of activities with physical education or stuff like that. Maybe talk a little bit about her legacy and
Sure.
as well as kind of the longevity of those in your department.
Right.
I mean, I think my wife, Brittany, is probably the newest kid on the block, and she's been around for like 5 years. Yeah. And so you're really a pretty solid group. Like you've been around and you know CSC, you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
And so.
I think Ann actually probably influenced everybody that's been in that department, maybe besides Brittany because she wasn't here. But Ann just, you know, I had the pleasure of going through my undergrad with Ann and some of my master's classes with Ann. And for those who don't know me, I also was endorsed in math education 4 through 9. And by far, I'll just call a spade. Ann's classes were much harder than my math classes were because she questioned everything you did and made you think about why did you present it this way? Why did you do this? And I know math's very discreet and things, but she made you question. She made you plan, and I think that actually probably made me a better math teacher in the end as well. So that's and she set the standard. I mean, she was, if you're going out there in the schools, you're going to represent you're going to represent Chadron State, you're going to represent me, and it was almost like an attitude. And some of the things that she did developing the program, you know, we've kind of played with a little bit, but sometimes we go right back to how it was when she was here. So, and the things she did for athletics, I just can't say enough about. And that's a whole different show, you know. But Ann was very influential on where I'm at, you know, currently. So
yeah, you know, it's interesting, Daniel, when we've had a fair amount of these podcasts, and we kind of come back to those standard bearers of CSC and the people like Ann Smith, and so. We got to keep those names on our tongues so that people don't forget who they are, because they're really why we're here.
Right. And, you know, Ann and I would throw Dr. Pat Colgate out there too.
Yeah.
He's the reason I came back to Chadron State. I was at Black Hill State. They didn't really have the master's I wanted. I was just coming back to finish the last few credits I had. He heard I was on campus, and he pretty much told me I was going to apply for the PAC position, and it's the rest is history. But he's another one who, from the standpoint of being my boss, he was also my mentor.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot of things just about leadership and organization and things that I probably wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have been under him in that role.
Sure.
So.
Well, before we get into the quick hitting questions, some of your hobbies you mentioned are hiking, fishing, gardening. What are some other things you like to do outside of work?
Well, I would say number one is probably camping.
Nice.
Yeah, I have a fifth wheel camper, and I get to go camping up in the Black Hills, and I like to go to Hart Ranch because it's kind of centralized where I can go hiking and fishing and boating and hiking all over, and
right across the road from Reptile Gardens.
Right,
So.
yeah, I could just I don't like snakes.
Yeah, me either.
I'll just keep driving by that place.
There is an eagle there, though.
That's right, yeah. It's,
Is there?
The bird show is always fun.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I like going in there.
Okay.
So our final segment for you is the quick hitting questions. First thing that pops into your mind or whatever you think would be a good answer. A favorite sports team?
I would say the Huskers.
All right.
And if it's Major League, only one I really watch is baseball, and so it's the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah. All right.
What's the first concert you attended?
Oh, boy. I would say it had to have been country when I was very young at Cheyenne Frontier Days, probably.
Oh, so it's probably a national act. That's a fun time.
Yeah.
Nice.
I can't even remember what it was, though.
Left an impression.
It did.
That works.
We were honky-tonkin', I guarantee that.
Favorite kind of breakfast cereal?
Captain Crunch, peanut butter.
Yeah. That works.
That's one Brittany's been on here lately,
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How many times have you been to the top of Sea Hill?
Oh, my gosh. Well, it's probably not accurate. I'm going to say probably 30 times, and probably 20 of those was because it was training, and I don't remember, or it's more, and I don't remember because my lungs were bleeding and I wasn't getting enough oxygen to my brain. So, but leisurely, I'd say at least 25 times. So.
Okay. Great.
It's a good workout or a good leisure hike.
That's
for
right.
sure. So if you had to pick one, volleyball or track and field?
Gosh. Participating or what?
Yeah,
What do you?
that's
What,
a good
yeah.
question.
See, this could go
I think
coaching, watching. There's a lot of different.
If you had to do it again and you could only pick one to participate in, high school, college, and all that, which one would it be?
Track and field.
All right.
Yeah. Because I'm more in control of my results instead of relying on others.
volleyball is definitely a shorter time commit.
It is.
For watching.
It is. It is.
Those track days get long.
Yeah, they sure do.
But fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
So.
Perfect. Well, hey, Dawn, thanks for coming on the show with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Got to learn a little bit more about you. It seems like I've known you around here for years and years, but this is good to sit down and have a chat.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, thank you.